Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are looking at a stack of documents today that, honestly, it reads like a fever dream that someone had after eating way too much cheese before bed.
A fever dream is a good way to put it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so strange. Where do you even start?
I know, right? We're talking about weaponized hams
Actual hams, used as, bludgeoning weapons.
and princes being, well, tragically crushed inside of pockets. Just gone.
And this whole world where children are controlled not by like chains or anything so crude, but by these delicate, beautiful golden threads.
It's all just so wonderfully weird. So for everyone listening, what we're doing today is synthesizing the events from a really dense set of sources, sessions '06 through '08.
Right. And this covers the entire narrative arc that's known as the retrieval of Arthur Figworth.
A simple-sounding mission.
Deceptively simple, because while the ham incident is, certainly memorable,
Oh, it's the first thing I'm going to bring up at parties for the next month.
I'm sure. But what we're really looking at here is, I think, a case study in the consequences of magic. This is not a clean hero's journey. Not at all.
No, it's messy, it's chaotic, it's this deep dive into a fairy realm where the logic is completely alien and the physics seem to be actively malicious.
Exactly. And the mission, as you said, it seems so simple on paper. Go in, get the kid, get out.
The target is Arthur Figworth. He's an 11-year-old boy. The family suspects he was taken by fairies.
And the entry point is this magic mirror in a place called the Hen's Teeth Tavern.
But the absolute second they step through that glass, the whole idea of a simple rescue just completely dissolves.
It shatters. They find themselves in this elf-lord subterranean palace, and almost immediately the environment itself starts to take its toll.
And that's the perfect word for it, a toll. Because that, for me, is the key theme for this deep dive. The cost.
Yes. The cost. Usually in these kinds of adventure stories, the cost is, you lose some hit points, maybe you break a shield.
Standard stuff.
Right. But in this narrative, the cost is your identity, it's your sanity, and sometimes it's very, very specific biological functions.
Okay, so let's get into it. Part one, the environment and the setup. Because before we even get to the actual rescue, we have to talk about the casualties of just arriving.
The price of admission.
Exactly. Let's start with the character Wattrell.
Right. Wattrell is the immediate cautionary tale. He's the guy that shows you what kind of place this is. The sources note that he was turned to stone almost the second he got there.
Turned to stone. Classic fantasy, right?
Yeah.
You think, okay, a basilisk, a Medusa.
That's what you expect. But the cause is what makes this a real deep dive moment. He wasn't looked at by something. He wasn't bitten. The notes say he was petrified after eating a cockatrice.
After eating it.
Eating it.
Which implies he went through the whole process. He killed it. He probably cooked it, or maybe he didn't, which is a whole other issue. And then he ate it.
And that just completely subverts the usual fantasy biology, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Normally, the threat is external. You fight it. You don't consume it.
Right. Here, the threat is consumption. It suggests that the magic of this entire realm is like toxic at a cellular level. You can't just treat this ecosystem as a buffet.
Precisely. It's the first and loudest signal to the party and to us, analyzing it, that the normal rules of biology just do not apply here. If you consume the monster's curse still activates from inside you.
That is a terrifying concept. The idea that the weapon of the enemy is inherent in its own flesh.
It sets the tone perfectly. This place is lethal in ways you cannot possibly anticipate with just a sword and shield.
And at the same time, Wattrell's becoming a very unfortunate garden statue. We have Chubslop Brundleshank, by the way.
A truly great name.
An all-timer.
Yeah.
He's having a very different, but you could argue equally traumatic experience. He falls into something called the pit of despair.
Which sounds like a metaphor for my Monday mornings.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
But no, this is a literal physical pit in the middle of this dungeon.
It is. But what's so fascinating about the Pit of Despair is how it functions in the, what I'd call the narrative economy of the story. It's not just a trap to remove a character.
No, it's more than that.
It serves as a recruitment center.
That is such a good way to frame it. I hadn't thought of it like that. Because he's not down there alone, is he?
Not at all. He finds Torque Guzout. Torque is a dwarf ally who was already trapped down there in the pit.
Okay, so this brings up a crucial point about survival mechanics in these high-stress environments, right?
Yes, absolutely. Chubbs falls in. He's presumably terrified. He's totally separated from his group, plunging into darkness. He meets a complete stranger.
In any civilized setting, they'd be deeply suspicious of each other, maybe even hostile.
But in the pit,
Yeah.
they become instant allies. There's no time for suspicion.
It's trauma bonding, pure and simple.
It is rapid onset trust, born of shared misery. And so the disaster of falling actually becomes the asset of recruitment.
Wow. So if Chubbs hadn't made that mistake, if he hadn't fallen, the party never would have gained torque.
Exactly. The narrative actually rewards the failure. It basically says you fell and that's bad. But hey, here's a heavily armed dwarf warrior as a consolation prize.
And torque becomes absolutely pivotal later on, which we'll get to. But let's look at the other kind of warfare the Elf Lord is using here. Not just physical traps, but psychological ones.
Yes, the mind games.
We have to talk about Master Ned. The party finds a cell, and inside is what looks like a silvery, majestic unicorn.
The ultimate symbol of high fantasy. Purity, magic.
The ultimate quest object.
Yes. You see a unicorn, you immediately think, okay, I have to save the unicorn, and then I'll get a blessing or a magical horn or something.
It's a built-in instinct for anyone in a fantasy world. But it's a lie.
A complete lie. It's an illusion. It's actually just a horse named Master Ned.
A regular horse.
Just some horse.
Why do this? I mean, what is the point of disguising a horse as a unicorn? Is it just is it just for decoration?
I think it's deeper than that. I think it speaks to the vanity of the Elf Lord. A horse is functional, right? It pulls carts, it carries things. A unicorn is pure status.
So it's about appearances.
The Elf Lord's realm is described as a palace. He wants the aesthetic of high magic, the glamour of it all, but maybe he couldn't get his hands on a real unicorn. So he does the next best thing. He takes the mundane, a simple horse, and just paints over it with magic.
It's a signal to the party.
A huge one. It tells them that everything here is surface level. The beauty is a lie. The magic is a facade. Nothing is what it seems.
And that lesson in distrust becomes vital almost immediately because the environment shifts again, the torches flicker out.
And that's where we move into Session 06 proper. The dominant mechanic becomes total, absolute darkness.
Sensory deprivation. This is where the story stops being an adventure and it starts becoming, well, a horror survival.
100%.
But Chubbs, again, showing he's more than just the guy who falls into pits. He manages to loot in the dark.
This detail is amazing.
The notes say he finds a leather pouch containing pearls and an emerald. I just love this because it implies he is literally identifying priceless gemstones by touch in the pitch black.
It shows such a high level of professional competence. You know, an emerald has a specific cut, a specific coldness against the skin. Pearls have that slightly gritty texture if you, say, run them against your tooth.
So he's not just fumbling around in a panic.
No. He is calmly assessing value while completely blind. That is a top-tier rogue doing their job under the absolute worst possible conditions.
So they manage to get a makeshift torch lit. They guide Chubbs and Torque the pit crew, as we should call them up, from the lower levels. They find a kitchen. They reunite with the main party.
The band is back together.
The band is back together, and they finally find their target, Arthur Figworth.
But this is not the reunion that the Figworth family brochure promised.
Not even close. They find him in a wine cellar, but he isn't crying for his mom. He's not huddled in a corner. He's armored. He is actively guarding the room.
This completely recontextualizes the entire kidnapping. The Elf Lord didn't just take Arthur to be like a pet or a simple prisoner.
No, he took him to be a resource. He's been conscripted. He's been turned into an asset.
It's a complete erasure of his identity. He's not Arthur Figworth, son of Lord Figworth, anymore. He's Guard Unit 4.
And the mechanism of control is so specific. We come back to the gold-threaded anklets. We saw this motif earlier with some of the servant children they glimpsed.
It's a recurring theme.
So my question is, why gold thread? Why not just use iron shackles? It seems more practical.
Well, I think it's the symbolism of the Fae. Iron is the metal of men, right? It's the metal of war, of industry. It's cold, it's heavy, it binds the body.
Huh?
Gold, on the other hand, is the metal of value, of allure, of beauty. It binds the will. By using a delicate gold thread, the Elf Lord is basically saying, you are precious to me, you are my treasure.
It's a form of slavery that disguises itself as jewelry.
Exactly. It's insidious because it looks beautiful. It doesn't look like a restraint.
The solution, though, is surprisingly, well, violent. They don't cast a counterspell. They don't find a magic word.
No, they just physically grapple the kid and cut the thread.
Which is just a chaotic image to have in your head.
Yeah.
You've got this group of heavily armed, battle-hardened adventurers basically wrestling an 11-year-old boy who is trying to stab them with a dagger.
While someone else is trying to perform what is essentially delicate surgery on his ankle with a knife.
High stakes, incredibly low margin for error.
Right.
One slip and you've just hamstrung the kid you're trying to rescue.
But look at the result. The notes are very clear. This breaks the influence immediately.
Snip, and it's done.
It confirms that the magic is external. It's not a spell woven into his mind. It's a property of the object itself. It's a hard magic system.
So you just destroy the receiver to stop the signal.
Precisely. Once that thread is cut, Arthur is back. He's himself again.
And once he's back, he becomes an asset. He's no longer an enemy. He's their guide. He knows the territory.
He leads them to the library.
And this is where the scope of the entire world just explodes. Because they find maps.
Not just maps of the palace, maps that show locations like Greenhall and, more importantly, the Summer Court.
The Summer Court. I mean, that's a heavy hitter in folklore terms. That is not a small name to just drop.
It is massive. Finding that on a map implies that this dungeon, this whole Elf Lord's palace, it's just a localized outpost of a much, much larger empire.
Just a backwater province.
Right. The Summer Court is usually a seat of supreme fairy power. Finding a map to it suggests this Elf Lord reports to someone he has a boss. Or, maybe he has rivals he's spying on.
It makes the party feel very, very small all of a sudden. You think you're fighting the big, bad, evil guy.
But you're actually just fighting middle management.
Whatever, you're fighting the regional director of evil.
Exactly. It hints at this whole political landscape that goes far beyond the scope of this one simple rescue mission. But, for now, they have to focus on the immediate threat.
Right, they can't worry about geopolitics yet. They have to get out. So they leave the relative safety of the library and move into what the notes call the Blue House.
Which is such an innocuous name for what they find.
The description of the Blue House is one of my favorite parts of this entire transcript because it is so deeply unsettling. It's an enormous excavated cavern with a whole house built inside it.
And it's lit by luminescent mushrooms.
And there are gnome gardeners tending to these weird glowing mushroom plants.
It hits that very specific note of wrongness. You hear gnomes and glowing mushrooms and you think whimsical, you think fairy tale.
Yeah, it sounds delightful.
But they're underground, in a cold, damp cavern inside a hostile palace. It's the uncanny valley of environments. It looks pretty, but it feels all wrong.
And at the very center of this bizarre garden, sitting in a gazebo, is the figure known as the White Lady.
And the key descriptor the source uses for her is emaciated.
That one word just completely undercuts all the beauty of the garden.
It absolutely does. It suggests that the glamour of this fairy realm comes at a steep metabolic cost. The garden is lush, the mushrooms are glowing and vibrant, but the person who lives there is literally starving to death.
She's just a prop.
A prop in a stage play, yeah. She's rotting away while the scenery stays pretty. It's horrifying.
And the violence here is immediate. They find the last missing child, Giles, near her. And as soon as they try to get him, the death fairies descend.
I love that distinction in the text. Not just fairies, death fairies. Skeletal fairies.
And the trigger for the attack is so specific. The party left the stone paths.
It's a classic rule of folklore, isn't it? Stay on the path. Don't eat the food. Don't tell them your name.
In these fairy realms, those aren't just suggestions. They're absolute physics.
Yeah.
It's not a law you break and get a fine for. It's a law you break and the environment itself tries to kill you.
They stepped on the grass, so antibodies of the dungeon attacked them.
And this is what leads us to the skirmish in the mushroom garden.
Huh.
This is the moment of the ham incident.
Sauce. We have to talk about the ham. It's time.
Okay, so paint the picture. Chaos is erupting. These skeletal fairies are diving out of the darkness. And we have a character named Creme Brulee.
A fantastic name for an adventurer.
Creme Brulee decides, in this moment of life and death, that the best tactical option available to him is to weaponize preserved meats.
It is improvised weapons 101, but with a culinary twist.
But hams. Why hams?
Well, think about the context. They just came from a kitchen. They're now in a garden that's part of a larger palace complex. It's likely near a pantry or a feast preparation area. You use what is at hand.
I suppose.
And a cured leg of ham is dense, it's heavy, it has a bone in it. It's essentially a salty, delicious club.
It's still ridiculous.
It is completely absurd, but it highlights the desperation of the moment. This isn't a choreographed fight scene from a movie where the hero draws the gleaming magical sword. This is a brawl. It's messy and it's ugly and you fight with whatever you can grab.
And the stakes are immediately highlighted by what happens to the others. While Creme Brulee is, throwing pork products at the enemy,
A sentence I never thought I'd hear.
Chubbs and Redbeard are hit by this magical black dust.
Which causes instant paralysis, complete, total paralysis.
And that is the contrast that I think defines this entire deep dive. On the left, you have a man fighting for his life with a ham. On the right, you have two men frozen solid, unable to breathe or blink, completely vulnerable to being executed.
It whipsaws you, the reader, between high comedy and abject horror. And the thing is, if the ham thrower fails, the paralyzed men die. The silliness is the only thing standing between them and a TPK, a total party kill.
Wow. They somehow survive the garden. They now have all the kids, Arthur, Giles, and the others. Now they just need to get out. Which brings us to part 4, the escape.
And the tragedies.
And the tragedy, yeah. This part of the narrative really shifts the tone. The trickster figure, Periwinkle Black, makes another brief appearance.
Always showing up at the most inconvenient or convenient times.
She gives them a cryptic hint. She says, you don't need light to see the exit via the other magic mirror.
Which is, a classic fairy riddle. Oblique and unhelpful on the surface. But they figure it out. They find a secret door activated by a torch bracket.
And it leads to the vault.
And the loot.
We need to clock the loot here because it becomes really important later. There are 3 treasure chests. They've got silver, gold, gems, some bejeweled bracers.
And a jet black metal rod.
Let's put a pin in that rod because that's a Chekhov's gun, if I've ever seen one.
Absolutely. But they also find something else in the vault. Among the mirrors covered in black sheets, they find a frog.
Just a frog.
Yeah.
But he has a name, Emile de Kremer.
A prince turned into a frog.
It's the most classic trope in the book. The expectation here is set by literally centuries of fairy tales. You find the frog prince, you protect him, you find a way to break the curse.
And you get a kingdom as a reward, or at least a very powerful ally.
That is the script. That's what's supposed to happen. But this deep dive, it goes completely off script. The notes are so blunt about it. They just say, while fleeing, the frog is accidentally crushed in Giles's pocket.
It is so brutal.
It's so darkly realistic, it's almost funny.
It applies mundane, boring physics to a high fantasy moment. Giles is a child. He's not a seasoned adventurer. He is running for his life through a collapsing, hostile dungeon.
He's probably scrambling over rocks, bumping into walls. Maybe he falls down once or twice.
And he has a small, fragile amphibian in his pocket. There's no plot armor for that frog.
None at all. And think about the narrative loss there. Emile de Kremer. That sounds like an important name. That sounds like a person with a backstory and a future.
He could have been the key to the next major story arc. He could have been their patron, a source of immense power and wealth, and he is just wiped out because someone didn't have a Tupperware container.
It's such a harsh lesson for the party. The world doesn't care that he's a prince. To the physics of the dungeon, he's just biology. Squishy, fragile biology.
It just underscores the fragility of their win. They're so close to a clean escape, but even in victory, they're creating new tragedies. You rescued the peasant boy, but you crushed the prince.
And they lose a party member too? Or at least he gets lost. Torque goes out.
Torque, the survivor of the pit, the man they gained through a failure.
The group is leaving. The character Murthon is leading everyone, the kids included, back through the mirror to the safety of the tavern. But Torque stays behind.
The notes say he wants to explore other mirrors.
It's that classic adventurer's hubris, isn't it? Or maybe gamer's greed. We survived the big bad, let's just see what's behind door number 2 before we leave.
It's that desire for just one more treasure chest, one more secret.
And it costs him. He steps through a different mirror and ends up in a place the notes call the Abattoir Cave.
The description here is pure nightmare fuel. Churning machines, hostile, hunched creatures.
It sounds industrial. It contrasts so sharply with the aesthetic of the fairy palace, the glamour and the gold thread.
It suggests that behind all that beauty, behind the glowing mushrooms and the unicorn illusions, there is a factory, a slaughterhouse. This is where the sausage gets made, maybe literally.
And Torque is there, alone.
He went from being part of a successful rescue mission to the main character in a horror movie survival scenario in the space of one bad decision.
It's a terrifying loose end to just leave hanging.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the group, they're back in the town of Black Apple. They've escaped. They think they're safe.
Which brings us to part 5, the aftermath. But the dungeon, it sort of followed them home.
It really did. They return to the town, they go to deliver the good news, and they find that mischievous duplicates of the children have been there the whole time.
The changeling twist, a classic of folklore.
This is pure psychological horror. Imagine this. You've just risked your life, fought death fairies with a ham, escaped a subterranean hellscape. You have the real Arthur Figworth. But Arthur is already at home eating dinner with his parents.
It completely turns their victory into a conspiracy. How do you possibly prove that your dirty, traumatized Arthur is the real one without looking like a deranged kidnapper yourself?
Excuse me, Mrs. Figworth. That perfectly clean and happy boy you've been feeding for the last 3 days is actually a monster from another dimension? Please take this one we found in a hole instead.
It's an impossible situation. And it forces them to hire security. They have to hire a knight, Sir Ruprecht, to guard the real kids at the Jolly Fox Inn because they can't just drop them off at home.
It completely complicates the mission complete status. The mission isn't over until the parents actually believe you saved their kid.
And the confrontation at Giles's house shows just how messy this gets. The mother is, of course, totally confused. She's being actively gaslit by powerful fairy magic.
But the party forces the issue. They bring the real Giles forward. And the imposter, who apparently has a name.
Philip.
Philip the Changeling. He realizes the gig is up, the con is over, and his reaction is, well, it's unique.
He transforms into a small goat.
A goat. Not a demon with wings, not a horrifying monster.
A small goat. And I absolutely love this detail because it feels incredibly authentic to old world folklore. Changelings in those stories weren't always demons. They were often nature spirits, tricksters. They'd turn into a log or a cat or a common farm animal to escape.
And he just runs off into the woods.
Yep. So now, somewhere in the woods outside Blackapple, there's a goat named Philip who has all the memories of being a fairy imposter and knows exactly who the party is and what they did.
That is a loose end. That is 100% going to come back to bite them. Maybe literally.
It just adds to the texture of the world. It's not just we killed the monster and took its stuff. It's the monster turned into livestock and fled, and now we have to worry about vengeful goats.
So finally, they have to close the door. They're at Figworth Manor. They've convinced the family Arthur's reunited. But the magic mirror is still sitting there, still active.
The open wound in reality. The back door to hell in their parlor.
And Redbeard, the dwarf, takes action. The notes say he accidentally smashes the mirror.
The quotation marks around accidentally are doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
He uses that jet black rod they found in the vault to do it.
It's a very calculated destruction. He knows they can't leave it, but if he just smashes it on purpose, he might be liable for destroying a priceless antique mirror.
But if he trips, if he accidentally stumbles and smashes it with this weird, heavy rod he just happened to be holding.
Well, dwarves are clumsy, right? It's plausible deniability.
Exactly. But it solves the core strategic problem. It cuts off the Elf Lord's access. You do not leave a back door to the abattoir cave open in a civilian's living room.
No, you absolutely do not.
Okay, so the mirror is broken, the kids are home, Philip the goat is frolicking angrily in the woods. Let's talk about the loot in part 6, because the rewards here they're complicated.
That's a good word for it. They get their 30 gold pieces, which, considering the amount of trauma they just went through, is not exactly a retirement fund.
Not at all. But the magic items they found, let's go back to that black rod, the one he used to smash the mirror.
Yeah.
They identify it, and its name is Cantrode.
And its magical property is unsettling.
It transforms into a biting centipede.
Talk about a cursed reward. Why would you want a rod that, when activated, becomes a giant biting insect?
It's body horror in your inventory. You're carrying that thing around in your backpack.
It fits the theme, though, doesn't it? The Elf Lord's magic is all organic and glamorous on the surface, but underneath, it's gross and insectile. Even his weapons are pests.
But the most interesting item, and I would argue the most devastating cost of the whole adventure, is the gloves. The character Murthan receives a pair of bejeweled bracers, or gloves.
The truth-telling gloves.
And the key property. They cannot be removed.
This is a narrative bomb. Just think about the normal life of an adventurer. So much of it is built on deception. You lie to guards to get into a castle. You bluff monsters to avoid a fight. You haggle with shopkeepers to get a better price.
Murthan can't do any of that anymore. Ever.
He is cursed with absolute, unfiltered honesty.
How does that even play out in a conversation? Did you kill the dragon and save the town? No, actually, we ran away and hid until it fell asleep, and then we stole its treasure.
Or worse, the social stuff. My lord, do you like the hat my wife made me? It is the most hideous thing I have ever seen.
It completely destroys social cohesion. He's a liability in any delicate situation.
It forces the character and the player controlling him to become a master of technicalities. You have to tell the truth, but maybe you don't have to tell the whole truth. You have to learn to speak like a lawyer, Or ironically, like a fairy yourself.
Using the truth to deceive.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes the way Murthan has to interact with the entire world from this point forward.
It's a curse that doesn't damage your hit points, but it completely cripples your diplomacy skill.
It is brilliant storytelling, because it ensures that the consequences of this one dungeon crawl will be felt in every single conversation Murthan has for the rest of the campaign.
So let's wrap this up. They collect their gold, they trade in some of their gems, the notes say they prepare to carouse. A well-earned drink, I think we can all agree.
Oh, for sure.
But I want to ask you the big question. Looking at the final ledger, did they win?
That is the provocative question, isn't it? On paper, yes. Mission accomplished. Arthur is home. Giles is home. The portal is closed. They got paid. Check, check, check.
But there's always a but.
But look at the debit column. Torque, their new ally, is lost in a nightmare factory. A prince of what was likely a powerful kingdom is dead crushed in a pocket like a forgotten snack.
A major diplomatic incident waiting to happen.
A huge one. And Murthan is cursed to be socially awkward and brutally honest for the rest of his life. And, lest we forget, there is a magically adept shape-shifting goat with a grudge loose in the forest.
When you put it all that way, it feels a lot less like a victory and a lot more like a trade.
They traded one set of problems for a much stranger, darker, and more complicated set of consequences. They didn't fix the world, they just broke it in a different way to get what they wanted.
And that, I think, is the real deep dive takeaway from these sessions. In these stories, and maybe in life, there is no reset button. You don't just go back to normal after something like this.
No, you go forward into the mess you helped create.
The status quo is gone. The new normal involves truth-telling gloves and centipede rods and keeping an eye out for angry goats.
What a world.
It certainly keeps things interesting.
It does.
Thank you so much for breaking this down with me. It's been a wild, wild ride from the Pit of Despair all the way to the Jolly Fox Inn.
My pleasure. It was a fascinating set of documents to explore.
And to you, the listener, maybe the next time you see an antique mirror, think twice before you touch it. And if you ever find yourself rescuing a prince,
Check your pockets.
and stay away from the goats. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.